Pisces 30, the Great Stone Face. This is a reference to an aspect of some literature. Hawthorne was an American author who wrote about this great stone face. And the idea is that this rock formation had impressed people with the fact that it looked like a face, and that one day somebody would be born who resembled this face. And that person would be the greatest and noblest person of his age. And one day a particularly ardent seeker, a young man, set out looking to find this great stone face so that he could identify the teacher whom he would follow. And there came a time when he saw the face. He had his journey, and he came to this goal of his life, and he'd spent a long time looking, and he saw the face, and he realized it actually looked like him. He was as close as you could get to looking like the face. And yet he was a very humble man, and walked away wondering if he could find a man who looked more like the great stone face than he did. Although that, in fact, would be impossible because he was very much the same. Now, the teaching of this Sabian symbol is that we do have to imagine the best that we can be personally. And in a sense, we do this by the process of modeling. We find somebody to emulate, and then when we reach a certain level with them, we find somebody else, and we continue to look for models of how to become. And yet there comes a time when actually we are as good as anyone is. And this final grasping of that fact is the biggest challenge, perhaps, for many, many people, perhaps most. It was for the Buddha. The last test, examination, the last challenge for the process of enlightenment for the Buddha was to assume that he was the Buddha, to claim that station in life. And Pisces 30 is telling us about that very, very difficult last step for most of us to take. Of course, on the highest level, this last step is to do with spiritual enlightenment. But on a scaled down level, perhaps, we all want something that we haven't got right now. Not all of us, perhaps, but most of us do. And this really determines our life course. Things are okay, but they could be a bit better. Or things are not okay and we need to correct it. Whatever, we can imagine something better. Now, rather than just wistfully notice it when you see it, what we're teaching here is that that's not enough. You have to walk like that person. You have to talk like that person. You have to act like that person and think like that person whom you idealize. And you can even get to the level where you can train your feelings so that you feel the same emotional condition that you would expect to feel were you that idealized being. And this is quite a challenge for us to do those things. In the Sufi tradition, in the West at least, the example of this is Hazrat Inayat Khan. And this man was phenomenally impressive, such that he went out for a walk one day when he was in New York, and the way that he walked was so impressive that it was reported on the front page of the New York Times by a reporter who saw him. Now, I took on this particular practice of trying to walk like my ideal. and see what would happen. And a very lovely thing happened to me, quite by accident. I was in Riga in Latvia, and I saw a beggar on the street and wanted to give the beggar a coin, and I didn't want to establish a relationship between us of less than and more than. So I kind of tried to walk towards her with a certain amount of grace. And I gave her the coin, and we smiled, and it was a lovely moment that I remember to this day, many years later. And then I walked away and met my friends, and later, perhaps a year later, one of the people that was with me on that day commented upon the fact that during that moment, when I was walking towards the beggar, she was reminded of the walk of Hazrat Inayat Khan. It was a lovely validation for me. I felt good to hear that. And I think what we have to do is to remember that humility is graceful and a lovely oil that greases society and smooths your way through difficulties. Humility is wonderful up to a point, but beyond that point, you would be foolish to deny a certain majesty of being, a nobility of character within you. And you cannot idealize that in another person and just wistfully wish that you had been that way. That won't work. You won't ever get there then. You have to understand that you have that within you. Each of us does. Whatever we can imagine, certainly whatever we can idealize is the best version of a person. We have that within us somewhere. Even in the realms of the higher self, in the realms of potential rather than actualized being, we have it. And we can't expect it to be given to us, gifted to us. It won't be. Neither freedom nor power can be given. Each must be taken. And here we have an example of where somebody is so humble that they won't even find the confidence, the faith to take their possibility, their potential, grasp it and realize it. This is the mystery of this sign. Grasp your highest potential, your potential. Walk as though you have already mastered the highest ideal within you. Talk that way, act that way, feel that way, and think that way. Become that person as though you're acting. And eventually this fake it till you make it principle brings about the result that you desire.